Hawks don't have a timeout. Trey from midcourt to win it.
Swanson to first. Launching downfield, underthrown and intercepted. Keely Ringo has an escort down the sidelines, all the way to the end zone, and Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
I'm Seth. I'm here with Jarrett, and this is Everything 404. And today we're going to be discussing the Atlanta Hawks game, Orlando Magic at the Atlanta Hawks, February 20th, 2025. Jarrett, how you doing?
I'm doing good. That game. I mean, you get off to such a hot start like that coming out of All-Star break. I mean, y- it looked like we could be a team that could go on the run, and it just ends like every other Hawks game this year.
Yeah, it was a very, very promising start by all means. I mean, you come out shooting like we were. We were, I believe, 4 of 6 from three in the first quarter, just a few minutes in. I mean, everybody firing on all cylinders. But the thing I was arguably most impressed with was our defense. Orlando is a very, very good and physical defensive team, and that's how they beat a lot of teams and put a lot of pressure, is by just suffocating defense, harassing the player on the ball, and we seemed to be beating them in transition. We were delivering that defense and that physicality right back to them, and we were forcing turnovers. We weren't turning the ball over ourselves, and truly, it just was a beautiful first quarter. And it looked like I was even ready to get on here and talk about how good we looked and how much of a big win it was at that point, but things fell apart pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, you shut out for the first quarter. You shut out Paulo for majority of the first quarter, and then he just started cooking us. I mean,
Yeah,
he
two
ended up
points.
finishing with 36. I mean, he cooked us. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, it seems to be a factor in every time we play the Magic that he gets off to a very slow start. We saw this in the Orlando Magic game before the break, just 2 games before the break that was. He was honestly horrible in the first half. He wasn't shooting well. He wasn't getting to the basket. He wasn't able to get to the free throw line at all. It was truly just a tough game for him early on. But we did see pretty quickly on this game a 2-point first quarter. He missed a bunch of shots that he usually knocks down, and then he got a few to go in the second quarter and looked almost unstoppable. It was 18 points for him. He had more points in the second quarter than he did the entire second half, and tied for the amount he had as the entire game. So Paolo's a tough guy to stop, but the Magic beat us everywhere. They were shooting the ball better in the second half. We had a stretch at one point where we did not score a single point for 4 minutes. You
Yeah,
can't have that happen.
yeah. I mean, this whole game was just frustrating. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We didn't have a good performance by anyone really. Trey Young, I mean, he took some shots. His shot selection toward the end of the game, I thought really costed us in the fourth quarter. Um, Dyson Daniels looked rough offensively. Say, oh my gosh, he looked rough. And then, I mean, it was a rough night offensively after the first quarter, and especially after such a hot start. We started so hot offensively to start the game. I mean, we had 33, we had 24 with like 5 minutes to go in the first quarter, and then we just fell off a cliff, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'll be honest, as a Hawks fan, after being a fan for so long, especially it seems during the Trey Young era and his time in Atlanta, you can never trust a lead in Atlanta. And it also seems the other way around. Other teams tend to blow leads playing against Atlanta, but it always seems like we're trying to play from behind. We're trying to make comebacks. It just never seems that we can hold on to a lead for an entire game and kind of, I guess, dominate a game. It's always us behind. We're always trying to get back in games. We're always trying to get our flow back after having a hot start. It, it's true. It truly just hurts to watch sometimes. But I will say today was one of those games where you can look at a lot of things, and I will say myself, I was very, very aggravated with the officiating. It,
Oh
it
yeah,
it's no excuse at all. You cannot, the officials were not missing wide open layups. The
no,
officials were not missing open threes. They weren't, you know, arguably, I mean, you could say getting cooked by Paulo Banchero, but they were so many egregious calls, and it seemed like, there was a few calls that I would say went our way, a few little pushes in the back that you maybe could have let go, especially in a physical chippy game like this one. But some of the fouls on Paulo, just touch fouls. I mean, you had Trey pick up a guy who's never in foul trouble. You had him pick up 4 fouls in about 5 minutes. It
yeah,
was crazy to watch. So the officiating played a big role in it. I will say we were lucky it wasn't as bad of a, loss, especially with how many missed free throws they had. You saw Paulo leave a ton of points at the free throw line. He may have been coming up on a 50-point game had he been knocking down his free throws. And Franz Wagner left a few there, and it was just a tough game tonight for Atlanta. I think both teams didn't shoot as well as they usually would. As Orlando has had their struggles this year offensively, but I think the big thing with them has been not being able to stay healthy. Even tonight, you see them still missing Jalen Suggs. So, in all, I kind of like what we've got going on right now, but that was just a tough loss to watch, especially in a game where you're in such a close race trying to reach that sixth spot and stay out of the play-in tournament. It hurts.
yeah. To go on your point about the missed opportunities by them, they shot under 70% from the line.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's horrid almost. I mean, what do you have our splits? How were we?
we shot 67 from the line. I mean, it
Both
shot
teams leaving them.
67 from the line, uh, 31 from beyond three, and then 39 from the field. So I mean, it
Do
just
you have the how do you have the free throw comparison? Like how many free throws they took compared to ours?
they took 10 more. They had 38 the whole game.
Okay. And it makes sense. I will say this, they had that fourth quarter, counting the Trey Young fouls, they were in the bonus. I mean, nearly the entire fourth quarter, maybe three
Yeah.
minutes where they weren't. So
Hmm.
truly, officiating played a huge role. It really did.
Yeah.
And you can point a lot of fingers at that. You can say what you want, think how you want, but the referees were not leaving points under the basket. And that's where I kind of want to get in to our least valuable players of the day. Starting off, Clint Capella. It it was just not his night. And to be completely honest with you, it hasn't seemed like he's had many nights this year where it has been his night. Clint Capella, once again, this is probably the third year now that you could say he's quote unquote survived the trade deadline. He's been one of the players
Yeah.
that everybody has expected to go, expected to be traded, dumped off somewhere, get some draft capital back, even with many callers, but he always seems to still be here. And I hate to say it, I like the guy. I really liked him, especially during the year before when he was kind of working back from injury, had just gotten to Atlanta, and then the year of the playoff run, he was one of the biggest catalysts in our playoff run. His interior defense, his rebounding, his ability to run the floor and kind of, play that big man athleticism type duo and pair to Trey Young was just the perfect fit, it seemed. So his
Yeah.
offensive decline has kind of just gotten to the point now where you're looking at a guy who's nearly 7 feet tall. He doesn't stretch the floor at all. You know, he can't stretch the floor as in shooting mid ranges, getting around the 3-point line. It kind of clogs up the paint. And, the high pick and roll is one of the best things the Atlanta Hawks have. That high pick and roll, let Trey kind of either get in open space for the floater, dump off to a quick push shot or floater from whoever was setting the screen on the roll, or draw the attention kick out. And now you have the guys around Trey to shoot 40% from three, like Niang and Levert, who has been absolutely incredible. And
Yeah. Levert had a pretty nice night.
he did. He was almost one of the MVPs, which we will get to in a little bit, but it truly just hurts to see how bad his offensive struggles have been. I mean, 1 from 6 from the field. You cannot have that in your center. And I think it's obvious to why he's lost his spot to Onyeka Okongwu now. And I think truly he would not be getting many minutes at all if we still had Larry Nance Jr. down there. So just a tough night and all for Atlanta and a tough night for Clint Capella as well. Your thoughts on Clint?
Yeah, I would say Clint Capella. Like, I think you could say he's probably the least valuable player the whole year. I mean, he's had such a rough year, and it's not like even last year too. He wasn't having a great year. Uh, Dyson Daniels too. He broke the steals record for a single season. We're February 20th. We still have like almost 2 months of basketball left to be played, and he's already broke the record.
I
But
do want to clear. I don't think he's broke the all-time single season record. I think it's since 2000. I saw that stat
oh,
today. I think it was Pat. I think he passed Paul George, but I do believe there was. I could be wrong. I need to look that up and actually check on that.
hold up,
But
I'm actually looking it right.
He did break the deflections record. He has broken that record. He's surpassed it, and he's looking at possibly doubling it, which is absolutely unheard of. And when you speak of Dyson Daniels, and while you're looking that up, just a little bit on him. Today, obviously, we got the news of Victor Wembanyama being out for the rest of the season. First of all, prayers up to him, praying for a speedy recovery for the All-Star who has truly had an incredible year and was looking at possibly being an All-NBA player and Defensive Player of the Year for sure, number one candidate. With him going down, I truly don't think you can discredit Dyson enough anymore to not have him number one for the award. He, in my opinion, is the most skilled, and this is a little bit of Hawks bias too, I'll admit it, but in my opinion, he's the most skilled defensive player in the world, and I don't think people really understand how much he changes the game. And the box score watchers are always going to say, oh, well, Brunson had 36 tonight. That game before the break where Brunson had 36, that's probably one of the hardest 36 points he's ever had to get. The
Yeah,
harassment and the defense from Dyson Daniels changes the game. And his ability to pickpocket, his ability to swipe down on drives and take away, what seems to be the easiest of buckets, it changes the game. He's changed this team, and without him this season, Atlanta would not even be, they're hanging out where they are right now. They wouldn't even be close to right there without Dyson Daniels this year, I believe.
no, no. But at the same time, you have to be relied on offensively, and he was kind of a liability today. Um,
He was. And it hurts to see because he has been such an improved offensive player. He's
yeah,
actually one of the most improved in the NBA. So
hmm
seeing him have such a rough day, and I do think, in all honesty, a lot of that comes from, being rusty. We're coming off the All-Star break. A lot of guys, traveling, doing things, taking time off. And I expected what we did at the start of the game to come at the end of the game today. I expected us to probably have a slow, rusty start like we usually do anyways, especially out of the break though. But as you
yeah,
saw, Trey Young came out firing. He still had the all-star heat on him. Shea missed some tough shots inside, and he was definitely having a tough night down low. But I'll be honest with you, there was a couple plays down there. It seemed like he was getting hacked, a couple of missed calls even, and he did miss those shots. But granted, the kid had 12 rebounds today, and on the offensive glass, not only getting his own misses and keeping it alive, but he had a couple of huge offensive rebounds in the game. One specifically right at the shot clock. He was able to get back in, get the rebound, went up, got his own rebound, then went up and got a bucket in a tough situation when the Magic were coming back towards the end of the half.
hmm
And he's just he's just so involved on both ends, and his defense isn't even talked about enough. But I think one of his best attributes is his off-ball movement. Now,
yeah,
we've seen him become a really improved three-point shooter. He's become very consistent from outside the three-point line, and his ability to move without the ball when you have a guy like Trey Young on your team changes the game because he's able to find open spaces, he's able to create his own space without the ball, and when you have somebody Trey Young's level of passing, he's gonna find you. So. Ricochet is definitely one of our most important players. Today wasn't his day under the basket, but he made up for it with his rebounding, and that's why he's not one of our least valuable players of the day.
Yeah, I feel like he had a lot of hustle plays today. I mean, but again, just like Dyson Daniels, I felt like he was kind of becoming a liability as well. I mean, he shot well from three today,
Yeah, he
but
did.
like,
He 3 of 5. Very
hmm
impressive.
and I mean, but like at this, we have to be better. I feel like shot selection was a key part to that. I feel like yeah, we were making some tough shots, but they weren't needed. Like we have to draw up better opportunities.
I absolutely agree, and I think a lot of it isn't even just the pure shot selection. I think it stems from not being able to get the shots that we want. I think a big issue with this Atlanta team right now, and it has been all year, and I think Vít Krejci was kind of stepping into his own and really becoming that guy. But truly, we do not have any type of real playmaking or ball movement when Trey Young is off the floor. We were
No.
starting to see it from Jalen Johnson, who now out for the year. You don't have him. He was really becoming that guy that, when Trey would go out of the game, he could kind of come in and run the floor and control the offense a little bit. Vít Krejci was doing very well of it. He's been improving all year. A guy that honestly one of the most improved, important, and underrated players on the team. Not only for his offensive side of the ball, but he's also been playing some ferocious defense.
Yeah, I'm
And
glad we were able to bring him back this offseason.
oh, absolutely. On a very cheap contract. He's got the player option, uh, 2 years down the road, and we have him locked up for next year. He could be, it's always the sneaky pieces like that that kind of change your team. Like, it's
Especially
it's
the
not
Hawks.
always. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, look at 2021. You had the guys like, you look at other Hawks teams in these past years on paper, and you could absolutely make the argument that they look way better than that 2021 team, but that 2021
Yeah.
team had a chemistry. It had the veterans surrounding them. I mean, you look at guys like Lou Williams, who was one of my favorite players on the team. Not only did he come off the bench and, I mean, take over some games. Game 5 in Philadelphia, we were down 25 points, I believe it was, in the third quarter, 26 maybe. And
Yeah.
he was the catalyst, I'd say. I'm pretty sure he ran off 7 right there at the end of the quarter. And
hmm
it was him and Danilo Gallinari right there that just changed the game, and it kind of gets everybody else in the vibe, hyped up. So I think Veet's one of those pieces. It sucks that, he's down once again. Him and Larry praying for a speedy recovery for both of them. Hope that they
Yeah.
can get back healthy soon. And, Larry, it is sounding like it could be season ending. And with him being on a, year where he's got to be extended or, let walk in the offseason, I really hope we bring him back because he brings that veteran presence and he is a floor spacing and at times very dominant big man who has changed the game for a lot for us this year. Earlier in the year in the Boston game, knocked down 5 3-pointers, and he was dominant inside, double-digit rebounds. I mean, it was game changing. We won that game without Trey Young in Boston, and it was just, it was really shaping up to be a year for the Hawks. And then obviously the injury bug caught us, which seems to be going around in Atlanta between the Braves and Hawks, but hopefully, with all being said, both of them can get back healthy towards the end of the year, and if we do have some type of run, they can be a part of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Uh, I want to start getting talking about the MVPs of the game though. Uh, we have Trey Young as an MVP. It, Trey Young, he played well until the end of the game. The end of the game, when there was what were we down by 6 or
6,
something
yeah,
like
it was
that?
194.
Okay. Well, he shot that deep three, and I mean, his shot selection down like in the key moments was awful. I mean, he's the only reason why we were in that game. But at the same time, you have to have better shots when it matters.
I absolutely agree. I feel like it's one of those situations where you can't leave him off because of without him, not only was he kind of showing that fire, getting into it with Goga Batazzi in the fourth quarter,
Yeah.
getting the team fired up. But once again, he's the only true playmaker we have. When he's on the floor, it's obvious how different our team plays on offense and how much better it is. And it's also kind of one of those situations where you didn't have many people today where you could look at it and be like,
Mm.
he played better. He did something more. I mean, Trey, his 38 points, he obviously didn't shoot amazing from the field, a few turnovers. But one thing I always talk about with Trey is, people dog him for his turnovers, having 3 or 4 turnovers, maybe 5 here. When you have the ball in your hands as much as Trae Young does, and the usage rate that he takes on here in Atlanta, you're going to have turnovers. You're going to try and make some tough passes. Some of them are going to get knocked down. That's just how it goes. That's how it happens. He makes up for it. Not only has he become not even a true liability on the defensive end this year, people don't talk about how improved he is on defense. Not only is he averaging almost a steal a game, or I believe he is averaging a steal a game now. He dives for the ball, he makes hustle plays, and he actually, at one point this year in one-on-one matchups, Trae Young was top 10 in turnovers forced, which is an incredible stat for him. So we've really seen the defensive leap from him. We saw it a good bit today. He made some great plays, some hustle plays. He dove on the ball against Anthony Black and almost got the possession back for Atlanta. I believe they did get a foul, and Paolo missed one out of the 2 free throws that he shot. So, it's one of those games where you can't say no to Trey, but it's also one of those games where, you just didn't have really anyone else to kind of put in that spot of him. But
Nah.
I do want to bring up Terrence Mann, who in my opinion, was a steal in the Bogdanovich trade. Huge fan of Bogdanovich. Once again, he's like Capella, had those years when he came to Atlanta. I mean, he was a takeover player. He could take over a game and was one of the biggest catalysts to that 2021 Eastern Conference Finals run. People forget, everybody remembers Trey Young shutting down the guard and hitting the floater. It's quiet as you know what in here. And people forget that what I believe it was the possession or two before that, he threw a pass to the corner that got tipped, and Bogdanovich was the one that came up with it and made the incredible contested 3-point shot to keep us in that one. So without him, you don't have a lot of this, Hawks moments these past couple years. He's made some huge plays. We wish him the best in LA. And getting Terrence Mann out of that play, and Bogey was not having a great year. I
No.
think kind of the play from the Olympics and carrying over all off season, he may have just been a little out of it, a little tired, whatever it could have been. But it just wasn't his year. He had nights every now and then where you're like, all right, this is the Bogey I remember. This is where we get it back, get going, and he just couldn't seem to find it. So I think moving him now was the right move, and getting a guy in Terrence Mann. People forget that this guy, and people joke about it now, but he was a former untouchable for the Clippers. They didn't want to trade him. And and that was the saying for Atlanta a lot of Atlanta fans, former
Yeah.
untouchable, who we got. But he really was a huge catalyst in some of their playoff runs and a true game changer for the Los Angeles Clippers, and even a good rebounder. He was a really, really good rebounder, which obviously is something Atlanta has struggled with this year down low and with size. So I really like what we're getting from him. He had, and you look at the box score once again, you see 7 points and I believe 3 rebounds, and you're like, this guy was an MVP over, somebody else. But it's not just about stats, how many points they score, how many rebounds they get. Because if you look at the box score today, you pull up your Safari and look at the box score, you see Ricochet had 11 points, 12 rebounds. You're like, there you go. But you don't see he shot, I believe it was, I want to say 2 of 9 from the field. I could be wrong. No, 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 it was not two. I think it was
Or
4 of
15.
13, 4 of 15, 15. There it is. So he Terrence Mann is a game changer on defense. And Jerry, you brought this point up to me earlier just when we were talking
Yeah.
about having him come off the bench with Dyson Daniels. If you want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, especially when Dyson Daniels isn't on the court, I think the presence Terrence Mann has, he's an unbelievable, not unbelievable, but like he's a really good pickup we got for for Bogdanovich, who wasn't having a great year. I mean, I thought that was a really. I mean, I wish we could have kept Bones. I mean, but like at the same time, I thought Bones would have been a good backup guard, for, bench guard for us. But we got a really good return on Bogdanovich. I mean, Terrence Mann looked he looked really solid today.
Absolutely, and it's like you said, when you have a guy like Dyson who is a defensive player of the year type defender who just changes the game in every way possible, and he didn't have his day offensively today. He still had 3 steals, made some huge hustle plays, defensive plays. He rebounded pretty well. It's just having that other option to come off the bench and kind of play on that number one guy and give Dyson a rest, or, if he were to be in foul trouble, which honestly is something very good from Dyson. We don't see him in foul trouble much.
No,
Um, we've seen it a couple times this year, maybe where he's had to come out with 3 in the first half or whatnot, but he's really smart defensively, and so is Terrence Mann. And I think one thing that we saw actually a pretty good bit of today after the Niang technical foul. We saw Barlow come in for a little bit, um, but Dyson and Terrence Mann together on defense is one of the most fun things I have watched all year from this
oh
Atlanta
for
team. In
sure.
all honesty, them playing that front and getting on the perimeter, making plays is so fun to watch. They have stopped a couple of big transitions from opposing teams and made some just big defensive plays, whether it's knocking the ball away, diving on a loose ball, couple of blocks, and they both rebound well. And we have seen Terrence Mann's offensive side really come out. We saw not too long ago he was 3 of 3 from 3, or maybe 4 of 4. He knocked down 3 or 4 threes in one of those games before the break. And in the Knicks game, he had a rough game. He
Yeah,
couldn't get his offense going. He had 1 point, on a free throw that he split at the line. But the game before that, he knocked down, I want to say 4 3-pointers, and his defense was beautiful. He changed the game in that last Orlando game, which is what that game was. So Terrence Mann was a beautiful pickup. Today, he was one of the MVPs of the game. And I do want to give a very, very, very honorable mention to Karis LeVert, who you said it yourself, you know, watching the game. He is a absolute game changer for
he's a
us.
bucket getter.
He
He
is.
is a
He is.
bucket getter.
I mean, you want to talk about the definition of a bucket getter. That is what pops up in the dictionary. His ability to get tough shots off and make tough buckets. And, we've seen him hit a couple of really, really clutch shots this year. Speaking of Orlando, we played them tonight, tough loss. The
Yeah,
last Orlando game before the break, he had, I want to say, maybe 8 to 10 points in the fourth quarter, and 2 of them were just really, really tough threes that you see some superstars not knock down. So, you know, I I, I talked about this last episode. Was not a fan of the DeAndre Hunter trade at first, but once I
no,
kind of came down to senses and really thought about it, and our front office, they'd rather sell the team than go into the luxury tax. It's just how it is here.
yeah,
Um, so I truly, truly believe that this team still has something in them. I think Levert was a spectacular pickup, and the only reason he's not on here as a MVP of the day is because you can't not put Trey Young up here for the day he had. And on top of that, I think Terrence Mann needed to be recognized for his play on the defensive side, which I also want to give a shout out to Levert for. He is not very known for his versatility and play on defense, but he has come to Atlanta and really shown that side of himself. And I think one thing you have to look at is in a Quinn Snyder scheme and offense, you're going to see a lot of players who may not be the best scorers on other teams get their chances. And I think that's also part of the Trey Young effect, which you've seen guys like, Niang in his first couple games here had a few games, 16 here, 13 here. He had 21 in the Knicks game. It it just changes the game for some players. So I really like what we've got going here. I think, looking towards the future into next year, I do think you should absolutely bring Karis LeVert back. You bring him back as a bench piece, have him, as kind of maybe play that six-man role that you were maybe expecting DeAndre Hunter to be in the future, and obviously for hopefully a little cheaper. Um, and then on top of that, you still have your guys. You're looking at a main five, and this is something I brought up to you earlier today before the game. You have a main five. If you're able to, keep Trey in Atlanta, give him the contract extension he deserves and wants,
Yeah.
you could have a 26-year-old Trey Young leading this team, who at this point is considered a veteran. He'll be going into his, I believe, I want to say this is year number 7 for him.
Something like
So
that.
yeah, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21. 21, 22, 22, 23, 23. So yeah, he's in his 7th year currently. So he'll be going into year number 8. You're looking at a guy who has the playoff experience. He's been to the conference finals now. He's led teams. He's been through bad years, good years, he's just never had that top 3 seed, top 4 seed type of team. We had the top 5 seed. We were tied with the Knicks for the 4th and 5th seed. They beat us that year 3-0 in the season series. And, we met up with them in the first round, gave them home field advantage or home court advantage, I should say. I think if you look towards the offseason, you bring back LeVert, you keep, Niang, who I'm pretty sure is locked up for another year, and you keep Terrence Mann. I don't see us trading him or moving him. You have a really set team in Atlanta that I think is one piece away from possibly being a sneaky contender team, and that's a big man. We are still
Yeah.
missing the big man piece. It's the biggest thing that we are missing. And, you know, Trey Young, shout out to Trey, shout out to Zach. They both put on for the city of Atlanta at All-Star Weekend, but
Hmm.
it was crazy to watch Trey Young with another all-star big man. And now granted, we're talking about Victor Wembanyama here, who is
Yeah.
just unlike any other player the league has ever seen. But even with Şengün, some of the plays and passes he was making, it was just fun to watch him play with a big man of that skill and talent. And, you know, I think if we in the offseason are able to bring in a big man like that, or even draft one, you know, that could be that guy, play the versatility side of the ball, stretch the floor a little bit, it could change the game in Atlanta for good. And you get a healthy Jalen Johnson back, praise be. This Atlanta team's gonna be scary.
Yeah. And I think that'll about do it for this episode of the Everything 404 podcast. Next time, we'll probably be talking about the Brave spring training, the Falcons cap situation with the new increase, and possibly another Hawks recap.
Yeah, we thank you guys for watching. Go check out the socials, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. We have it all in the bio here on our YouTube channel. And we thank y'all for the support. Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all next episode.